Hello, my beautiful creative creatures. It's Megan. We are going to be back with another Girl Defined because I find a lot of what they say to be interesting coming from a ex-fundy background. So I want to talk with you about that. And I hope you enjoy what I have to say. I know it's a little different than what I normally talk about, but I wanted to get more into self-help guru stuff, toxic Christianity, purity culture, things of that nature that have always bothered me. I mean, self-help is kind of a new one for me, but the toxic Christianity is definitely a main one. So we're going to listen to what Girl Defined has to say about why modern marriage vows are leading towards divorce. Okay, this is going to be interesting already.
You know, according to his own words, it's like there weren't any major problems in his marriage. They had been really in love, but he was on stage and he was singing and there was another female singer. And he just starts describing how when he was on stage and he saw her, how he just knew in that moment, you know, she is the one. He ends up divorcing his wife and pursuing this other woman. To me, it's like, wow, that is such a worldly view of love. It's Bethany and Kristen. And we are talking about marriage vows. I have been hearing more and more marriage vows that go like this: as long as our love shall last. So to death do you part is no longer a thing, and it's to death. As long as our love shall.
Okay, that's new to me. I'm going to already state that I hate, and I say this strongly, my own opinion, I hate how Christianity is like, don't leave, don't divorce. Especially like if there's SA or abuse or anything of that nature is happening in there, they never want you to divorce, which is a wrong thing to point and tell people when no. And if this is where it's going, I'm going to already have issues.
Last. And I am telling you, like, how can people in good conscience stand up there and like think that's a good idea? I mean, it's like, well, there are really hard days. There are really hard times. And it's like, my love don't feel like it's lasting. So like, peace out. I mean, come on, you know, I feel like we need something a little bit more solid and something that's going to at least set us up for success, you know? So we're going to kind of unpack that and why the two of us think that those marriage vows are just a really bad idea. And with wedding season upon us, we would encourage you to seriously think through, like, what you're hearing when you hear wedding vows, what you would want your wedding vows to be, and what they actually mean, because they're serious.
Yeah, and what they represent.
Yeah, what they represent.
Because they're coming from a place of perspective, right? It's like a worldview that you're entering into marriage with, and your wedding vows represent that worldview. And I think in many ways, not in every case, but I think what your wedding vows say in so many cases will determine the strength and the longevity of your marriage based on how you're entering into your marriage, what kind of mindset you have. So there's a worldly way to enter into marriage, and then there's a very biblical way to enter into marriage. And as Christian women, which is what this is geared toward, we want to encourage you to really think carefully about your perspective about.
Okay, so what I'm already going to say is the worldly view of marriage, I think when it comes to them talking about it in the Christian standpoint, is they don't want to focus on living with your partner beforehand, sex before marriage, purity culture, like I said, and obviously everyone comes into a relationship with different ideas of marriage, standards, and viewpoints and things. So, like, obviously it's not going to be easy. I know, because I've been married for almost 5 years now. So, you learn as you go along, but it's not like, it doesn't just happen overnight. And the worldview that they're probably going to skew to versus the Christian one is, like I just said, the sex before marriage, the living with your partner, the anything that's not Christian related is going to be viewed as worldly. And I'm not going to say, for me at least, I'm going to say that those worldviews shouldn't be like demonized, because a lot of times you learn about a person and it shouldn't be demonized to learn about a person however you do that. So it's not entirely bad. That's all I'm going to say.
Marriage, about that relationship, specifically about those vows, what they represent, and what God wants for us in biblical godly marriages. We want to say a quick shout out and a thank you, and give you a free resource if you are like, man, I want to have a godly marriage one day. I want to know, how he, is he the one? We actually just did an entire podcast. Listen to episode 76,
75 or 76.
76, 77. Listen to
75 maybe.
one of our most recent ones, and it's all about how do you know if he's the one. We really unpack a biblical approach to that. And one of the things that we give away is a free resource called 136 Questions to Ask in a Relationship, to help you really get to know the heart of this other person and make that informed, wise decision on whether or not you want to commit the rest of your life to them. And you can get this for free at Girl Defined.
And what I'm going to chime in about that is, you don't know if they're not going to be honest with you, because there are times where people can say exactly what you want them to hear, like what they want you to hear. They'll say something to please you, and it will not be the truth. It's not a guarantee. So to already put that out there, it's very much a naive expectation of oh, if I'm going to a relationship and I ask these questions, they're going to answer them correctly and they're going to answer them honestly. Nah, that's not accurate. Anyone can say something and it sounds good. Doesn't mean it's going to come out the truth. So as much as I could say yes, I mean, it's kind of 50-50. Yes, it's helpful, but at the same time, it could be the opposite. If you don't know that person for real, or they're lying to you, or just trying to make you feel better about staying with them, they're going to say whatever comes to mind. Point blank, period.
.com/questions. That's a freebie. Don't miss it. We also have a ton of incredible PDF downloadable resources on very specific, really helpful topics for you as a Christian woman, like this one, 5 strategies to find freedom from sexual sin, 50 question to deepen your friendships, battling sexual temptation, 5 strategies for thriving as a single girl. They go on. And these are a gift that we create every single month for everyone over on our Patreon platform. So you may have heard of it, patreon.com/girldefined. It's a platform where you can give $1 or $2 per video that we make, which might come out to $4 a month, $8 a month. It's not a ton. It's like a coffee or two. And by doing that, you link arms with all the sisterhood who is also supporting us and enable us to continue making this sort of content. You become the backbone. You become the support of this channel. And as our way of saying thanks, we create monthly resources to encourage you and help you. And anytime you sign up, if you sign up today, right now, you will get access to all of the past resources, this and so many more, these and so many others, plus all of the new ones we create going forward. So thank you so much for linking arms with us. Go to patreon.com/girldefined.
Okay, so I'm going to share a story that is the epitome of what happens when you go into marriage with this idea of, as long as our love shall last. Or if you go into marriage, as long, till death do us part, but really in your heart, you're and with a million caveats, with a million things that, oh no, the marriage will end if this happens. So I remember reading a story, it was about a very famous singer, a male singer, and it was supposed to be this beautiful love story. That's what the whole purpose of this interview was, but to me it was very depressing. I was like, that's not very exciting. Wow.
It's not very encouraging.
It's not very encouraging.
Marriage.
So basically what happened is it's the epitome of as long as our love shall last. So it's this married singer, and according to his own words, it's there weren't any major problems in his marriage. They had been really in love, but he was on stage and he was singing at this event, concert, whatever, and there was another female singer, very famous, very popular. And he just starts describing how when he was on stage and he saw her sing, and they started talking and communicating, how he just knew in that moment, she is the one. She is my soulmate. The woman that I am married to now, she's been a part of my journey, but our love is no longer. I am now moving towards this other woman. And so long story short, he ends up divorcing his wife and pursuing this other woman, and years later ends up marrying her. And the article was supposed to be this beautiful telling of wow, how some people are in our life for a season and they may just be there to propel us towards our true soulmate, and look at what a cute couple they are. And they were just gushing over this. And to me, it was wow, that is such a worldly view of love. That is not at all what a biblical covenant is. It's not not at all what God designed marriage to be truly and, permanently. It's this idea that as long as our love shall last, we will be together.
Right.
And as soon as our love fades, or I decide that this other person is my soulmate, then that chapter is over and I'm moving on. And I can see in the world's eyes how that might make sense. Like, there isn't a bigger reason or purpose for marriage, but we want you to just get a glimpse of truly what a covenant is all about and what marriage vows should actually be biblically.
Yeah, and if you can fall in love, right, that term is very popular, very feelings-based. Relationships are often based on infatuation, this idea of a soulmate, this cosmic connection, like I found the one. Then what happens when, if you fell in love, if you start to feel like you're falling out of love, if feelings and this feeling of connection and like the happiness of your relationship is what's sustaining you, like until our love shall last, it's like, well, what's making the love last?
Yes.
Is it truly just how happy you feel in a relationship? And when hard times strike or you see someone else that you feel more drawn to, that's the end of your love? Like, it doesn't last anymore? Now I'm falling out of love? Like, those are very popular terms. And it's this, to me, it's a very unstable, insecure place to be because your love is based on something so shaky and something that's not permanent at all. Like, either of you could fall away or, like fall out of love. It might not last for whatever reason. And to me, that just does.
I think when it comes to that stuff, then you guys talk it out. Granted, may not agree with, like, the whole, like, I got married to this person like they said in the story, and then I changed my mind and divorced them and got married to someone else. So that I get where they're saying, but I mean it's normal for every couple to have their ebbs and flows of stuff, and like to say that like those feelings almost are not valid regardless of if they're only temporary is a very damaging thing to say. Like, everyone in a marriage can have moments where they're like, meh. And it happens, and it's just the way it is sometimes, and it can't, and it's not like it can't change or it can't be fixed or whatever else. It's just maybe in that moment you're just dealing with something. Maybe you're in a depressive state, or you're dealing with postpartum or anything really. It could be a variety of reasons, and it's not always like the person. So you have to talk it out with the person that you're with. Like, you gotta talk it out, because if you don't, there's gonna be miscommunication, there's gonna be resentment, there's gonna be all these things. So you need to talk it out, essentially.
Not seem like a very secure way to even enter into your marriage. And so that is very much the world's way. But when we look in the Bible, when we look biblically and we say, okay, well, where did marriage come from in, like, at all? Like, okay, in the beginning, Genesis 1 and 2, we see God creating the man and the woman, creating this covenant, calling it marriage, bringing them together in this union, saying, be fruitful and multiply. We see sexual intimacy in this picture. We see family in this picture. We see all of these structures that the God of the universe created and set into motion. It comes from God.
Marriage was not our idea, people.
Marriage was not our idea. It was not a cultural idea. It came from God. We see that in Genesis 1 very clearly. So here we have this institution, this God-ordained, God-defined institution.
I'm gonna probably just disagree, because I know there's plenty of other, not even just religions, but other backgrounds that focus on marriage. There's like Viking marriages, there's pagan marriages. Like, I don't think it was that. But that's just my opinion. I will have to look it up for myself and validate that, because the whole concept of marriage, from what I know, was probably pretty new in certain areas of the world. So to say it was just God is no. That's in my opinion, I do not feel that's correct.
Marriage. And then we see, okay, well, what is love? Is love really just emotion? Is it really just feeling? Is it infatuation? Is it Cupid striking me? Like, what is it? And when we see in scripture, we don't just see marriage as this isolated union just created for human flourishing and partnership, companionship, whatever. Like, it is all of those things, but we also see marriage like constantly from Genesis to
Yeah.
Revelation linked to this bigger picture pointing to something. We see marriage is actually just a metaphor, a reflection of something so much greater, a spiritual
Yeah.
reality. And what marriage on this earth is actually intended to point to is this covenant relationship that God has with his people. We see marriage in, created in Genesis. We see Ephesians 5, God talking about, like, Paul saying, like, what is this mystery? What is this marriage? Oh, the man is actually reflecting Christ, and the church, and the bride is reflecting the church. And so it's this greater mystery, this picture of God pursuing his bride, pursuing the church, loving us, his people.
I find that so incredibly cringy now, because, like, hearing those statements, like, God pursuing the church, pursuing, like you're the bride. Okay. Why is God this way to us then? If we're supposed to be this God we serve, why are we the bride to him in that way either? Like, it's all over the place. I don't get it. It's all over the place.
His children loving us faithfully, and God actually calls it a covenant, which isn't a word we use. You don't really hear it in a lot of marriage ceremonies, but that's what God is saying. Marriage, earthly marriage, is supposed to mirror the covenant that God has with his people, that God has with his bride, the church. And a covenant, if you break down the definition, literally means a promise so strong it cannot be broken. It's not just, until our love shall last, until we stay in love. God's saying, no. Earthly marriage is a reflection of my love for you, and my love for you as my people is a covenant. It's so strong it cannot be broken. And so when you, on this earth, enter into that marriage covenant, you are portraying something so permanent, so lasting, so faithful. It's a reflection of me and my character. And so
until something happens, and then they want to say, because most times, at least from what I've experienced in the church growing up, is if a man, most of the time it is the man most times. Not saying it is all the time, but most times it's the man. Like, if the man strays and cheats on his wife, they automatically want the wife to be the one to fight harder for their relationship. They push it so hard that you must stay, because obviously you weren't making your husband happy, so therefore it's your problem. They do the whole victim blame and say, oh, it's all your fault. But when it comes down to it, no, it was the husband's fault. He did that. It's not on the wife to change that. The husband should be the one to be asking for forgiveness and making those changes, and not expecting his wife to do everything. So that's my issue. I don't like that, because the forcing of it being permanent is always basically turned around on the wife. If it's a cisgendered marriage, that's what it is.
it's something that we should take so seriously.
For
and when we
sure.
enter into marriage, I know for Zach and me, our marriage hasn't just been all rainbows and butterflies. We've had hard times. We have gone through hard stuff. And if our marriage was just about feelings and happiness in those moments, I don't think our marriage would be lasting, right? We both choose, and our marriage is filled with blessings and so much happiness, because we choose to base our love on a choice to love the other
Yeah.
person, to pursue and cultivate our love.
For
Over
sure.
time, your love is cultivated and grows. It's not just based on feelings, but if it was, I don't know where we'd be. I don't know where you and Dave would be.
Well, and I think it would do Christians, it would really help them if they actually sat through and thought through, okay, what am I genuinely committing to and entering into this covenant? Because I think we would, we don't say, we say, yes, I really would do until death do us part, but let's be honest, what about when he's driving you crazy and annoying the heck out of you? Are you really committed to that covenant then? What if you find out you find out you're struggling with an addiction?
I find if my husband's bothering me in that sense of being annoying, it's usually a very fleeting moment of just being annoyed. It's usually what it is, and I get over it. It's not normally that detrimental. That's just my opinion, though.
Pornography, are you committed to the covenant and walking through those hardships with counsel, with help, with
Yeah.
all of those things, not just doing this on your own, going through these steps? Are you committed in those moments? So I think we think of all the sparkles and the butterflies and the
Right.
rainbows, you're saying, of course I'll commit to this covenant. Yes, I'll enter this till death do us part. But maybe we should stop and think through some of the really hard things that can happen. Those things that make us feel very disconnected. Those things that make us, feel like this, I don't want to be in this anymore. Like, let's think of those things. And then, we don't have to actually stick them in the vows, but like, let's talk through that with counselors, with mentors, and say, okay, yes, I am entering to this covenant, and I am thinking ahead of time of what those things can be. And yes, I am entering to this covenant, and I'm going to love just like Christ loves me and never abandons me, never leaves me, even though I'm a wretched sinner and constantly forsaking him, he pursues me and loves me anyways. And it's like, wow, that's the type of love we're supposed to be reflecting. We cannot do this on our own.
Right.
We need Christ. We need his help. And I mean, that's one of the reasons we wrote Love Defined, because I don't know if we have it, because we want to help you gain a truly biblical, a true, like, full picture of what God-defined love actually is. And so Love Defined unpacks that. It unpacks a biblical view of marriage, of love, of how to go about dating to end up in a covenant that you are willing to make that choice in. So even if you're married and you're like, I need to go back and, like, relearn some of this, Love Defined would be a huge help to you. If you're single, dating, like, this book will be life-changing. And you can get this at girldefined.com/shop.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say?
Yeah, I would say go listen to the most recent podcast episode that just came out on Monday. That is really going to help you dig into.
All right, there's not a whole lot left. Let me pause for a second. All right, so there wasn't a whole lot left after that one, but obviously they always are selling something or advertising something on their thing. Learned that from Jimmy Snow. So, yeah, when it comes down to like the modern marriage that they're talking about, I get and can agree that you do need to talk those things out, but it doesn't always guarantee that the person, one, is being truthful, and two, trying to think of another thing that I wanted to say. And like, there's something else. So I was trying to think of the other thing. But yeah, like there's many things that can happen within a marriage, and to make this definitive thing that it like you can't leave, it's so bad if you leave, is very detrimental and very damaging. It's not healthy to push that narrative to the extent that they do. I don't agree with that. But you let me know down below what your thoughts are, and I hope you appreciate it. Give me a like, a subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.